it is going to do? Is it going to catapult India not just to the high table, but allow it to perhaps punch through a few UN reforms and also get itself a permanent seat in the UN Security Council? That's very critical. Joining us now is Asoke Mukerji ji, former permanent representative of India to the United Nations. Ashok ji, namaste, Jai Hind. Thank you very, very much. Over the last 9 years, soft power, soft diplomacy, because you played a key role in the UN getting to adopt 21st of June as International Yoga Day. But how has yoga allowed India to project itself to the world? Let's start from there.
Well, I think the message which was contained in the initial proposal made by Prime Minister Modi in September 2014 was to bring the world together in a holistic manner. This year, the theme is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the world is one family. So this effort to use soft power diplomacy, which is what the International Day of Yoga is seen to be, to bring the world together, I think in the current moment is even more important than in 2014. Because in 2014, we did not have a polarization between the big powers, the spread of conflicts. I mean, there's one statistic which I keep talking about. When we adopted Agenda 2030 on Sustainable Development, in which the Yoga Day plays a role as part of the Global Health Agenda, the UN itself was looking after 60 million people affected by conflicts. Today, that figure has gone up to 324 million. So you can see the impact that conflicts have had across the world, and therefore attempts to bring the world together to share common values of uniting ourselves, unity between man and nature, within man, between body and soul, and so on, which has been explained by the Prime Minister in his proposal for the Yoga Day. These are very important themes, and I think that today the Yoga Day initiative has assumed even greater salience. And I suppose that is why the Prime Minister decided to actually celebrate it at the United Nations General Assembly this year.
True, but honestly, Ashok ji, how much has this actually helped, this entire exercise helped in raising India's stature?
I can give you two examples. Soon after the Yoga Day initiative was adopted in December 2014, we put our energies to implement it. And of course, the symbolic implementation is on 21st of June every year. And thousands of people, millions of people across the world congregate on this one day to practice yoga. But in November 2015, the first concrete output of this initiative was the launching of the International Solar Alliance, which happened in Paris between India and France. And then the decision to make India the headquarters of the International Solar Alliance, the first time an international intergovernmental body is headquartered in India, which began functioning from 2018 onwards. Today, we have 114 member countries of this alliance. And the focus is on climate action, which has been something that India and our Prime Minister have been emphasizing. That those days have gone when India was considered to be saying no to everybody.
Correct.
Now we are saying that we have our own proposal on how to address issues of climate change, and one way is to take action. And the action we have taken is to concretely move towards renewable energy so that we do not continue to damage the environment through the use of fossil fuel energy.
Correct.
And solar power is the crown jewel, if I may call it that, of this initiative. And so therefore that is one concrete outcome. The second, and all of us felt it, was during COVID. During COVID, when there was a surge of protectionist sentiment in the developed countries, they were refusing to part with their vaccines and so on. All of us have seen that. It was India that took this initiative under our Prime Minister for the Vaccine Maitri initiative to manufacture vaccines ourselves and also to share what we are manufacturing with other countries.
True, and more than 100 nations within the UN itself are stand beneficiary. But there is something about the UN that reminds me of Sholay and Asrani's character, the jailer Saab. Because he says, हम अंग्रेजों के ज़माने के jailer हैं, सब कुछ बदल गया पर हम नहीं बदले. It somehow seems to apply to the UN. कि हम अंग्रेजों के ज़माने के उस ज़माने के more than 75-year-old organization that's come through, दुनिया बदल गई, everything's changed, but हम नहीं बदले. Quite ironic, isn't it? So everybody says change, but is it really going to change?
The solution for those of us who have been part of this effort is a very clear solution, and it goes back to the only time the UN Security Council has been reformed, which was in 1963. And if we recall what happened, when the UN was created, as you pointed out, this was an organization created by the military powers that were victorious in the Second World War. India was part of the British Empire at that time, although 2.5 million Indian soldiers contributed to that victory. But we got nothing out of it in the UN itself in terms of a position of at the table of the Security Council. We were a colony of Britain.
Right.
So in 1947, when we became independent, one of the first things we did was to try and enter the Security Council through elections. And in 1947, of course, in November, we conceded the election which had been deadlocked and allowed Ukraine to come in as an elected member of the Security Council. And 6 weeks after that, we took the Kashmir issue to the Security Council. So we were not in the room, as an elected member when the Security Council dealt with Kashmir.
Right.
But over the next 15 years, from 1947 till 1963, India galvanized a movement called the decolonization movement, which brought in former colonial and now developing countries into the General Assembly and made them the majority.
Correct.
And out of 113 countries in 1963, in December, 96, which was a majority of more than two-thirds, voted to amend the UN Charter and expand the Security Council, adding 4 more seats to the 6 elected seats of that time. So there are 10 elected seats. Now, unfortunately, since December 1963, the situation has not changed.
Right.
So our focus is on a resolution to amend the Charter through the General Assembly. And all the other discussions that go on about which country will come, which country will play a role, etc., will only be relevant after the seats are created. It is like a game in which first you have to have the stadium, then only the players can play a game.
Correct. But you cannot have a player who comes and says ki jab tak meri batting hai because I have got the bat in my hand. That's exactly what China seems to be using the veto for. What is China's love for Pakistan-originated terrorists? Why do they exercise this veto every time a Pakistani terrorist is there is a move to designate them a global terrorist?
Yeah, we have named them yesterday or day before. We have in a sense named them, and we have played the tape in the United Nations of Sajid Mir and his voice directing the Mumbai terror attack. So India has raised the ante, if I may call it that. But you're right that in countering terrorism, firstly, the Charter does not give any role to the Security Council. They have taken the role themselves after 9/11. Before 9/11, they were not interested, frankly, in countering terrorism. Although India had proposed a comprehensive convention to counter terrorism in 1996 in the General Assembly.
Right.
So India's initiative of the comprehensive convention has got totally diverted by the Security Council playing this role and having adopted more than 55 resolutions on countering terrorism. None of these resolutions have been seen to be effective for one simple reason, and that is that terrorism and countering terrorism today for the Security Council is a political or a geopolitical tool.
India called this out.
It is not addressing the core issue of the impact of terrorism on mankind. And we saw it in our region from June 2011 onwards, when the United Nations unanimously decided to bifurcate the Taliban from the Al-Qaeda. Nobody in India even discussed this issue at that time. But today, when you see the way in which the Taliban, who are part of the terrorist organization, have been handed over power by the Security Council permanent members without them saying anything. And the Taliban proceeding to lock up half the population of their country who are women. And nobody still says anything. I think that is a damning indictment of the way the Security Council has handled the issue of terrorism. So the first point is that I think countering terrorism is not in the remit of the Security Council. It is in the remit of the General Assembly. It has always been there. And it has been there since 1972 when the Israeli athletes were assassinated in Munich.
Right.
And India has played a very major leading role in first creating the response of the UN General Assembly to what happened in Munich, then proposing the comprehensive convention. And we really need a legal architecture like the convention, because without that, the obligations of member states are not clear. Right now, even if the Security Council does anything or does not do anything, a country like our neighboring country can just say and do what it wants. It can play two games. Nobody can call it to account. But if it's a legal obligation under a convention of the United Nations, then you can take that country to a court of law and force that country to fulfill its obligations under the convention and the UN Charter. So this is, I think, the reason why I agree with you that it's a game of double standards being played, and the Security Council really should not have entered into this era, in my view, from the time they did.
But we need that two-thirds number for the resolution to be passed, Ashokji. And is that what India is now slowly working towards with its engagement with the global South, what's happened in the Asia-Oceania and, of course, the Indo-Pacific region, his stopover at Papua New Guinea, and now coming over to the US of A, meeting in Japan, meeting in Australia. There has been a gradual engagement that's happened. I thank you so much. Thank you so much. We'll continue this conversation, and I look forward to you joining us again. Ashokji, always wonderful speaking with you. Thank you so much. We're going to